Welcome back to part 2 of I Catch Killers with our guest, Richie Vas. There, I got out of pronouncing your surname. I don't want to go into the English as a second language class. Who we could describe as a surfer, fighter and larrikin. In part 1, we're talking about his life growing up in Maroubra with his mates in the Bra Boys and being a bit of a wild child. Looking back at that and what we've heard, you could probably see where is this going to head. You know, you're sort of tempting fate with a few things. And it got to the point where you probably went too far and there was some charges. You were charged with an assault. But the thing I want to make the point here is that was sort of a turning point in your life, that you reassessed what was important and what you wanted to achieve. And from that point in time, and this is what I want to talk about, your career as a big wave rider, which is at the extreme, and also a UFC fighter, which I think, if there's any message that comes out of sitting down having a chat with you, you can turn your life around. And if you focus and channel your energy in the right direction, anything can be achieved, because they're two completely different fields. Mm-hmm. Perhaps it takes being a lunatic to achieve in both of them, but full credit to you. So let's first talk about your time where you've described it as your low point in life, and it came across in your book, but also in the movie Fighting Fear, where you got into a brawl on the Coolangatta. Coolangatta again. Yeah, I've been in a brawl at Coolangatta a long time ago. It must be something about Coolangatta. Okay, so talk us through it. You're up there for a fight, or
my coach at the time, Alex Pratt. Bruno Pano was also my coach, but Alex Pratt was competing up there in an MMA fight on the Gold Coast. Happened to be the same weekend that Mick Fanning had just won his world title and was returning home. I had a lot of mates up on the Gold Coast in the surf community, and so I thought it'd be a great weekend to get up there. One, to support my training partner, my coach, Alex Pratt, in his fight. And then also the night after, there was a big celebration for Mick returning home with his world title. So went up there. It was a great weekend. Went and watched Alex fight. He had a great win. All hours on a high. The following night, Mick was arriving home with the world title, and myself and all the boys from Cooley, the Hazard boys, Dozza. They took me under their wing. Hippo said, come stay at our joint. They got this big thing planned for Mick. We'll get on the drink and have a great day, which is exactly what we did. A big celebration. For me too, I really like to admit it, not at the time, I was never too good on the drink. I couldn't keep up with the rest of them, but I always tried my best. And we started early, and before the sun went down, I was pretty legless. And celebrations moved to the Coolangatta Hotel, and just one thing led to another. I was walking through a crowd, basically bumped into some guys, got into an argument. They said, let's go outside. I took them up on the offer and went outside and got into a blue. Sort of got towed up. Had to fight one of the guys, got towed up, went to get to my feet, got slippered, and luckily some of the boys had seen this happen from the window, had seen what was going on outside, so they'd come out to help me out, and a bit of a brawl broke out. And as I was getting back to my feet, one of the guys who was with the other group of fellas who were in the fight was there, and I just got hold of him and laid into him, and that was basically it. The security guards got involved. It all broke out. It was a big melee, and then I kind of got out of there and woke up the next day with a sore head. Yep. And knowing that there was a fight last night, not exactly sure the details, but found my way back to Hippo's place, and got myself on that flight that was booked for me that day. And you didn't think,
you thought that was done and dusted, there was a fight. And,
and the way my head felt, I thought for sure I've come out second best here, and all right, time to get on this plane and get back home and forget about this night on the Gold Coast, which I pretty much did. It was just, and around that time too, it wasn't uncommon. I was drinking and partying heaps, and like I said, I was never great at handling my drink. I'd always get too pissed, and still didn't have the maturity to walk away from a fight if someone, like I said, had bumped into me or bumped into them, and they caught it. So I still hadn't developed those skills and just say, you're right, mate, and I'm just walking away. Returned home, didn't think anything of it, thought, that was a pretty crazy weekend. Got back to my life of working, laying carpet, And then, about a month or 6 weeks later, police rock up at my mum's house, asking for my whereabouts. I wasn't living at my mum's at the time. I just moved out to a house down at Muru Beach with a few of my mates. So I said, no worries, Mum. I'll tell them I'll pop in Muru Police Station when I'm done work. Thinking nothing. I didn't put two and two together, that the two were related. With so many things going on around that time, I was in and out there with the Giant Tony thing. I had just come off from an assault charge too from the Coogee Bay. Yeah, I was just finished my my good behaviour bond.
Is that when you were naked and you burnt your ass on the barbecue?
That's right. So
Richie.
Yeah, well, that gives paints a little picture of that period of my life. I didn't give a fuck about a lot. It was all about having a good time. Things didn't have consequence,
Yeah.
And I was training and I just started, my martial arts career and had a bit of success. But I was burning the book at both ends. I'd train Monday to Friday, and then when the weekend came, I'd be on the
Okay, so that stage in life, you were looking at going further with your martial arts.
Yeah, I was having a big success with my surfing.
Yeah.
A few sponsors were supporting me, and then I think I had 1 or 2 fights. And I was undefeated, so I was really enjoying my mixed martial arts.
So you had those two streams.
I did, but I still wasn't. Like I said, nothing. I get away with everything. I was at that age where I was invincible.
Yeah.
I could still achieve all that inside the octagon or in the ocean, and I could still party every weekend with my mates and get in the blues in the pub and whatever. And nothing ever comes back to bite you until the police rock up at my mum's house at Coogee and look for my whereabouts. So I said, I'll pop into the police station on the way home, see what it's about, thinking it could be the minorest of things.
Yeah.
So I just finished day's work, carpool lane. On the way home, rocked into the police station. Hey, my name's Richie Vas Vaculik. I believe the detectives are looking for me. Just here to see what it's all about. Okay, no worries. Just pop back in and sit in these cells and we'll get around to it.
Sit in the cell.
Yeah. From there on in, I realised I was getting extradited back to Queensland on a grievous bodily harm charge. And
when did it dawn on you? It was that night at Coolangatta?
Well, they said it was from events in Queensland.
Ah, right. Okay.
So I started to gather. And and then I started to learn little bits and pieces. I to be honest, I didn't know a whole lot, even by the time I got to Queensland, after the 4 or 5 days of getting, taken to Surrey Hills and then
so you're in custody in the cells?
Yeah. So I think we went from Muru Police Station and spent a couple of nights at Surrey Hills and down to Waverley for a while and then up to Southport and up in Southport for a few days before I finally was given bail.
How did you find someone that's such a free spirit as yourself? How did you find being in custody? Like, the handcuffs, sitting in the cell, the door being locked. Like, talk us through that.
I didn't warm to it at all, and getting marched on the plane in handcuffs with 2 detectives either side, that whole, and I I felt horrible, I just finished day's work. I was sweaty. It was summer. I hadn't been able to shower. My mum had, just threw me a shirt, but basically, so you're feeling horrible. You're not knowing of what you're going to face when you finally, get to court or what the details of the charges are, and then you bounce around these cells and just with people that are just like. They weren't my cup of tea, They were all in and out of jail constantly. The conversation was always about, you'll probably get this, do this time, you'll probably, you'll be at Silverwater, then you go here. And I'm just like, nah, mate, I'm going to work this shit out and I'm not saying a
So you really had that sense? You didn't think this is my path? It was at that point you're thinking, fuck this.
Well, I was trying to give it my best. I wasn't, a lot of people who, like I said, they'd already had come to the fact that whatever they were charged with, they want to do time, and this is what they know, and they were just okay with it because they'd been in and out. Yeah. So every cell I shared or conversation I'd have was similar to that nature. Grievous bodily harm. Oh yeah, you'll probably do this, and because I just come off that good behaviour bond too, so I'm like that didn't look great. But I was just like, nah, and that's when I started thinking of my family, and this is not what I want to be remembered for.
It was in the media. I remembered seeing it. And I think this is the downside of having a reputation like the Bra Boys. And it was fairly big news at one of the Bra Boys. And it looked like it was staged, to get the shots and all that. And you're walking in handcuffs through the airport.
A little terrorist, unshaven.
Hannibal Lecter coming off.
Absolutely. So, it did. Yeah, and the fact that that mixed martial arts at that time too was very in its infancy here in Australia. And it was still known as no holds barred fighting, cage fighting. So to have the fact that I just started my career it just fed fuel to the fire.
Mixed martial arts fighter, bra boy.
Exactly. So
you talked a bit about your parents' reaction to it, and
I just knew their reaction. My mum was distraught. And my extended family, my sister, my partner at the time. My dad and my uncle, and of course my grandma wasn't around then, but just what she would have thought of it as well, and that's where I was really motivated to not be remembered by this. We've got to work through it. Whatever the result may be, I'm going to move on and not slip into this kind of identity of I'm a troublemaker, and I could very easily, because I was getting fed up with it. There was times as I was going through the court case, I was like, fuck this, I can't, I'm working all week just to pay lawyers, and fuck, I just want to get a drink and just forget about it, and that would just led to more and more trouble. And again, like we mentioned earlier, I would have had a bunch of mates support me on that too if I wanted to go to the pub and forget about the dramas I was having. But it would have just been a slippery slope as well. So, I was pretty motivated to get it sorted and get the best result I could in the courts, knowing that it was like a brawl, and knowing that it wasn't something malicious in the fact that it was just out of the blue, and it was an innocent bystander that was assaulted. So, I'm glad. Bill Potts was my lawyer, and he did a great job, and we got the charge downgraded to assault causing actual bodily harm. And the story was that we had an argument inside the pub, went outside, got in a blue, I got towed up, was getting to my feet, got slippered, finally got to my feet, and assaulted one of these members of the other group that we're fighting with, which he said by his own recollection, he witnessed what had happened, me getting kicked in the head when I was getting back to my feet. But he wasn't in the fight, actively in the fight, throwing punches, but Richie got up and then grabbed hold of me and got stuck in. So his own account really helps me out as well. Just painting the picture, they're all drunken idiots, young blokes, full of piss, just having a blue over nothing. And so we pled guilty to the assault causing actual bodily harm. But my lawyer fought for no conviction recorded, so I could still travel to the States. I could still pursue a career. Exactly. And in fighting and surfing, and that was the end result. So again, it was the best part of a year going through court, and like I said, working each week to pay lawyers, and but it was a lesson I needed to learn at the time.
It's confronting too, isn't it? Court, my experience, I didn't mind putting people in court, but when I was a person going to court and walking, I've had the experience walking in and having cameras on you when you're walking in the court as a defendant, and it's humiliating, and it's sort of, you're just there going, how the hell did this happen?
Exactly.
How have you got in this position? But I think it was really cool that the way that Mark Matthews and Macca dealt with it, in that they didn't lecture you about it. They didn't go, Richie, you're an idiot and all that. It was almost like their silence, but support was almost, the silence was harder than them, going at you. What have you done? What have you done this for? They're just sort of looking at you, and you've disappointed them, and that was
that was it. And I sense that, and also what really had an impact on me too were they were kicking goals in their own lives and their own careers. Mark was on fire with his big wave surfing. Him and Kobe had this tussle for many years, neck and neck. Who was the best sort of big wave surfer in Australia, if not the world.
And talk about that, because so people can understand. I understand it because I'm interested in surfing, but what they were actually doing, they were carving a career that basically hadn't existed before.
Yeah, they most certainly. Only a very select few surfers who could make it just simply by surfing big waves, and very hard to make that coming out of Australia. And around the time that, Kobe was leading the charge, this slab surfing type of surfing took off around Australia, which, involved jet skis, and they call it slab surfing because waves would come out of super deep water, hit a shallow shelf, and then just fold over itself, and the volume of water unloading on these reefs were incredible, and the barrels were amazing, but it's just the way our coastlines structures. We had these in Tasmania, Shipsterns, the Right in WA, waves around South Australia and Victoria, and even here around Australia, like Cape Slant, the way we call ours, or Cape Fear. And it was getting a load of media attention. So Kobe and Mark were constantly on magazine covers, were, DVDs and posters.
And they were getting sponsorship
and
from
sponsors
that.
to see the value in that. And they were just making a profitable career just by traveling, chasing these kind of waves, making new discoveries. And that's because it was so new too. It was these new waves, Cyclops in WA. So it was very much, a hot topic to be finding and surfing the newest, craziest wave.
So you're looking at these guys and thinking, look at what they're achieving.
Exactly,
and you've found yourself in a cell. And
Macca with his film and his music.
Yeah, talk about Macca, because we talk about the and this is what I want to touch on too, the positive side of the Bra Boys and that encouragement, getting people to challenge themselves. So what's he doing?
Well, he's done so much in his own career, whether it be music or film, and starting companies and businesses. And he's also moved up the coast and living up Suffolk Park and with his beautiful family. But he's he's cursed with this this mix of creativity and amazing work ethic. He can never switch off, and he can never just chill out. He's just always on the next project. And so it's just seen him having touring Australia with his music, and then coming up with film projects.
He opened up for Snoop Dogg, didn't he?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and then he was the song for the NRL, for a few years too, on the footy show, and
seems like a real creative person. And,
absolutely.
That didn't get crushed in the Maroubra environment.
Exactly. Again, it got nurtured, in a way, and while I was going through this court case and. Just going week to week to pay these lawyers and watching my best mates go out there and just really kicking goals. It really did help me keep my head in the right frame of mind. Go, all right, let's just get through this and then get back into doing what you were starting to have success with. Before this assault charge, you were starting to do pretty good in the martial arts and starting to get some sponsors for big wave surfing. So. And it was a real awakening where that can all be taken away. Simple as that. Like if you keep behaving like this, and you don't grow up and you keep making these stupid decisions on the drink and getting yourself into trouble, that'll all be taken from you, and you'll be just laying carpet, Monday to Saturday, and you'll just be not like there's anything wrong with that, but that's not what I wanted to do. I wanted to achieve certain things.
I think doing a trade, and I did a trade before I joined the cops and before this, and it's still still can think back how hard it is a day on the jackhammer all day or stuff like that. So when I'm in an environment like this, I'm thankful every day. So it's you should be able to and
I've always loved carpet. I'm still a carpet today, but it's just at that age there was big dreams and things I wanted to achieve, you know, and that, like I said, it was could very easily just be stripped from me, and so
and
I was very motivated.
Support of your mates too, because I saw that like Mark Matthews getting in the big wave riding, but he would pay for your ticket down there when you couldn't afford it because he didn't want you to miss out on the opportunity.
And he could see where I was, my headspace at the time, and he wanted to drag me out and take me on these surf trips, just for simply to help me with my mental space too, and help with my surfing career and keep that alive. You know, even through the court case, still being able to get, my images in magazines and get footage, and keep the sponsors happy that I'm still. And
your images in the magazines are because you lunatics are surfing stuff that if you make a mistake, the consequences are severe. And like Shipsterns, like. If you don't get eaten by a shark, what else could happen?
Shipstones is a great example. It's just such a unique wave. So many steps and lips, and every wave down there is completely different, and it's off the absolute tip of Australia, and so remote and isolated. It's got so many crazy features to it, but they were the kind of waves we were chasing. And Mark would just often pay for my ticket. Here's your board, just get out of here. And I'd be going, no, I can't, Mark, I've got to do this, I've got to see this person next week. And he was like, shut up, mate, we're going, and so glad he did, because that would just shift, like, as soon as I was on that plane, or as soon as I'd arrive at the destination, I'd be buzzing and excitement and would have a great surf and, maybe get a few photos and, you'd be high on life again. And
that's what I like about the positive stuff that comes out about what you guys were doing, that loyalty and that support, because it makes or breaks, doesn't it? Because the worst thing could have been after you got locked up for the assault could have been a mate, and you said they would have if you wanted to. Fuck this, let's get on the drink and just repeat the thing.
And a lot of my really close mates suggested that, and with good intentions at heart. They didn't realise that that was the shit that's getting me in trouble. They could see I was down. All right, well, how do we fix you this mood? All right, let's go have a couple of beers and laugh, and they'll put a smile on your face. And of course, a couple of beers and a laugh often leads to being in the club, bumping into someone again or whatever, and then you're going back down the same path that got you there in the first place.
It's an interesting thing because you see it in a lot of groups, and we've all got friends like that. They're always fun. Get them out on the drink and all that. Yeah. And it's cruel where you encourage them because it makes you all happier. Like you're the fun guy. So, come on, we'll get Richie on the piss and we're going to have a fun night. He'll do something crazy, but you're the one that pays for it. So it takes you a good friend to pull you away from that and go, mate, go this way.
And just even, realise themselves and just check in. Like, oh, wait a minute. I can see he's having trouble in the drink. Maybe we just go and get a good feed, have a good lunch and maybe go for a surf. Still, that puts a smile on your face as well, but there's no sort of downside to that. And it's hard. And I think we're all guilty of it. I think sometimes you just don't think, you don't put two and two together. And it's unfortunate. And even now today, I still see mates sometimes encouraging their friends to do something that might not be in their best interest, and it's fun at the time, but they're not there Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday for them when they're feeling like shit or dealing with their demons again. And it's hard to sort of step back and have a little bit of a broader view of what may be the consequences of all this kind of stuff,
On that, on the big wave surfing stuff, and we'll talk UFC soon, but on the big wave surfing, the Cape Fear owls, and the nighttime surfing session, I hope we're talking surf. I understand it, and when I say I understand it, watching it, I would never go out there if my life depended on it, which probably would if I went out there. Yeah. But that was this wave in Sydney that hadn't been ridden, or people didn't think it could be ridden, and you lunatics decided to start riding it and kick the bodyboarders out of the way, and that's how it got the name Owls.
Yeah, again, just a real pretty colourful history of that wave. It was being surfed by bodyboarders, but even prior to that, like body surfers, they called them spoonboarders in the past. Yeah, the history of that place, where Captain Cook landed, it's a pretty unique place, and we were hearing stories, and I, living at Little Bay, always running around on the opposite headland, looking back towards Cronulla and seeing waves when there was a big swell smash up those cliffs and white water explode. Going, is there a wave break? And then there's always like half rumours of a kind of wave breaks over there on the right conditions. It's a semi-wave, and then we were over in Western Australia with me, Mark Kobe, Evan Fawkes, Jack Kingsley. Just chasing waves at the box at Margaret River and having a ball. And also all these kind of slow waves I keep referring to there, bodyboarders love them. They're perfect kind of wave because they can kick into them and a lot easier for them to make. So they're always filled, and I guess heavily crowded by bodyboarders as well, whether it be in WA, Tasmania, South Australia, around Sydney, Cronulla. So we kept on running into bodyboarders and there was friction and we hated bodyboarders, just much like the police, Now I'm removed from it. I've got all their mates in the wall, you know what I mean?
I'm reading in your book there's two things I hate, bodyboarders and police.
Yeah. So anyway, we had a friend in WA who, Nikki Scott, she's a legend. She used to let us stay at her place, and she was showing us footage because she's very good friends with lots of the bodyboarders as well, saying, look, this is the wave they're surfing over there. And they would flip the footage around so it looked like a left-hander, not a right-hander. Saw photos of it, but again, they would never disclose the location. And we kept Nikki's name under wraps for many years, not to throw her under the bus, but a lot of time's passed now. So sorry, Nikki, I hope you're okay with that.
She's probably got a contract down there a lot now.
And so we gathered an idea, okay, we could tell by the cliffs and the colour of the water, we know where that is now. It's in Sydney somewhere. Pretty sure it's going to be on that Cape Solander headland somewhere. And we had an idea of what kind of conditions it would work in. So we came back from that WA trip with a pretty motivated to find this wave and start surfing it. And as soon as that first bit of swell popped up, there was a bit of south swell. Me and Mark said, I think this is big enough. Let's get over there and check it out. So we drove over to Kurnell, through Kurnell into the national park, trying to find where this cliffs are and where the wave may break, and just putting reports of this here and there, two and two together. And we found this wave, and we're looking at it, and it's breaking pretty much straight on dry rocks, and then just 2 meters behind the dry rocks, it explodes up a cliff face. And we're scratching our head going, is that it? Like, no, it couldn't be. Yeah, maybe. And a bigger one would break a little bit better and so make almost look half rideable. And we're scratching our heads, and we were there with I think it was Shorty, one of the photographers. He said, "Yeah, I think that's it." And so after a little and deliberation, let's just paddle out and see how we go. So we did, and we're sitting pretty wide, and we ended up taking off and, falling on a couple and getting smashed, but not hitting the rocks and getting washed off the cliff and going, oh, dude, that wasn't as bad as we expected. So we sort of moved further and further up the reef and ended up started surfing, and me and Mark had a few really nice barrels that day. It was only a pretty small day, now looking back, which is even a little bit trickier to surf because it breaks a little bit closer to the rocks. But it was enough for us to go, fuck, this is the place that we've been watching, you know what I mean? And
that gave you worldwide attention, didn't it?
It exploded.
That was just on the covers of all the surfing magazines, everywhere. It just, and that again added to the reputation of
so
what's going
the
down.
surf media loved it. There's a new slab right on doors in the middle of Sydney. And we were going gangbusters. Like everyone's just pushing as hard as they could go out there. And of course, the bodyboarders were serving it before us. And I just said it, in an interview or something with a surf journalist. Oh, it's ours now. You know what I mean? Like, because like I said, we had this thing with bodyboarders that I wouldn't be happy if I paddled out in a bodyboard surfing a slab and I didn't have words with him in some regard. They were the enemy, and we had to go and give them a hard time and try and win that breakover and get all the best waves. And so we're like, hey, this is ours now, and we'll sort of want to take it over. And now like bodyboarder surf it, and everyone's cool, and that sort of whole mentality shifted. But at that time, it was such a gem of a wave, such a unique find. We just wanted to be out there at every opportunity, and we didn't miss it for a swell for probably 10, 15 years. And like I said, everyone's careers benefited from it because there's magazine covers and footage and posters, and sponsors loved it because the attention was amazing.
With that type, like talking careers, like when KB was at his best, he was one of the world's most renowned big wave surfers, and then Mark Matthews, and you observed that they wouldn't get out on the piss. They would train, they would prepare for it and all that. So
exactly,
that was when you got charged with the salt, you had to readjust and go, okay, well I can't train all week and then just get out on the piss. I had to sort of focus properly.
And also like the Mark in particular, he's so calculated. He took big wave surfing as a profession, and he took it and. He would see us all coming. He was amazing at reading the forecast, and so the week leading up, he'll be getting prepared, not getting out on the piss and have everything ready. Where I'd be on the drink the night before, wake up, scratch your head, like, what flight I'll be getting? Where's my wetsuit? You know what I mean? So that was another little, sort of.
So they're
realizing point where, well, if I want to, there's opportunity here that I could kick on with it, but I've got to pull my thumb out and give it a go, and.
So with the martial arts. You got into you got into boxing that just guys around Maroubra that did a bit of boxing, and then the Brazilian guys moved in, and you started doing Brazilian jiu-jitsu and getting into martial arts in a big way.
Yeah.
A lot of people, when I, from being a cop, and they talk about, police boys clubs and that, why are you training people that, getting into trouble, teaching them how to fight?
Yeah.
But I've had this discussion with you, and I think we both agree that it's the best thing that you can teach someone, that discipline, that training, and then they don't have to prove themselves to be a tough guy. Do you want to just talk about your observation of your own martial arts journey, but you see kids coming in?
Yeah, I agree absolutely that any martial arts, that it's amazing for any kids, whether they're troubled or not, but with their confidence and their self-esteem and their the respect and the discipline involved, and they have instructors, and we always bow at the end of a session and shake hands with everyone in the class. But especially for these trouble kids that we were working with through the Shack Youth Services originally, with Wade Mathias and myself and Lewis Regis, who owns SRG Kickboxing. We would start doing a program for the kids there because they were all sporty kids. They were getting a bit of trouble, but they just needed like a positive outlet to sort of burn off some of this energy and be surrounded by positive people. And then the local PCYC at Daceville got wind of it, and they wanted to be involved. And it started off. Then they introduced the Back on Track program. Again, operating out of Lewis's gym at Alexandria, and there was that initial kind of response. Why are you taking these kids who are getting in trouble for fighting on the street and whatnot, and you're teaching them martial arts? But it was in no time at all, the parents were coming back saying, I don't know what you're doing here, but we're loving it. He's calmer, he's more respectful, he's not getting into trouble. So the results spoke for themselves pretty quick. And it was it's great to see some kids who, 13, 14, stepping in a gym with their chest puffed out, and they get paired up with, a 40-kilo hairdresser, and she punches the shit out of them. It's a great ego check and a great realisation that, you can't judge a book by its cover, and maybe I should walk around the streets and treat everyone with a different kind of respect.
And I'm glad you explain it, because you've got the credibility to explain it with your own career in martial arts. But it always the exact experience you just talked about then, I see it so many times, and it stops you, strangely enough, fighting on the streets. Because if you're fighting in a gym, whether it's a boxing gym, martial arts gym or whatever, you know that, as you described, someone 40 kilos might touch you up. I'll step through the ropes. I've been touched up so many times by people. If I look down and thinking, you can't do anything, and then all of a sudden I'm getting smacked or kicked in the head. It's humbling.
It's humbling, and that's a huge lesson.
That first, the humbleness, as you said, the guys strutting there with their attitude. And I've seen a lot of so-called tough guys come into a boxing gym and walk out with their tail between their legs and make them think. But once they do learn how to fight, my other thing, I think there's two parts to it that gives them confidence, but then they don't have to prove themselves. Like mug Richie before you've got the reputation you've got now as a UFC fighter. If there was trouble at the pub, you'd have to defend your honour, but now you can walk away from it. Yeah, exactly. Because you've got nothing to prove, and I think that helps a lot of people too. Yeah, it does. It's that whole environment. And if they want to continue and they still want to prove themselves, when they can do it in an environment where it's healthy, they compete against other amateur boxers, in the ring who are training themselves. If that's that combat sports or that drive, to still prove themselves and show that they're an amazing fighter, well, then it gets driven and, into an environment and a way that it should be. It takes more courage to step into a ring with a bloke that has been training to knock the crap out of you than just some
skull and 6 beers and then getting a blue at the pub.
So your career, and it's let's not diminish what you've achieved in it, because UFC, again, we talk about big wave surfing. It was relatively new, but mixed martial arts was something that people, you had your boxing, you had your karate, you had all your different styles. But mixed martial arts started taking off, and then the UFC is probably the pinnacle, I think, to describing mixed martial arts. And you were one of the first Australians to sign with the UFC. Yeah, it was it's a pretty crazy series of events how it all worked out. I loved boxing as a kid, and Kobe, like I said, I always looked up to him. He put such an emphasis on staying fit, for surfing big waves, and part of the training we'd always do. He had a little boxing gym in his backyard. We'd do the pads and we'd spar, and Ronnie Reardon would be there putting us through the pads, and amongst a whole heap of other training, but boxing was a big part of it. And I loved that, and I thought I could handle myself. I knew how to throw a punch. And then when I was about 18, a few Brazilians moved down to Maroubra, Alex Prats again, and he was down the Seals Club and bumped into Jai Abbott, and Jai said, "Mate, what's doing with your ears?" Because of these big cauliflowers, and they got started talking, and he started showing Jai some jiu-jitsu, and then obviously this Brazilian jiu-jitsu thing started getting thrown around the beach, and before he knew it, Bruno had a gym at the surf club and an academy there. We all started training and competing in Brazilian jiu-jitsu, and I had a bit of early success with that as well. So that gave me the initial idea. I like to box. I think I can kind of box okay, and I love grappling now, and I'm having a bit of success in the tournaments. So and then of course, again, someone suggested, would you do that mixed martial arts, Rich? At the time it was just old VHS tapes getting passed around the beach at the first UFCs. The Hoist Gracie, you know what I mean, submitting people, or the big 300 kilo sumo, exactly. And of course, of course I would. Not even thinking never
it through.
Lack confidence.
And but then I planned the seed, and I guess I've already thrown my hat in the ring. I want to, I'll see how. I'd like to give it a go for the experience. I might freeze up when that cage closes, and I might get the shit punched out of me and hang up the gloves. I don't know, but I was intrigued, and I loved the training, so that's how it started. To me, at the start, it was just boxing and Brazilian jiu-jitsu, and I had a bit of early success, and coupled with the fact that I had that surf background and I was from Maroubra, the promoters liked the backstory of that I had it set me apart from, I guess, a lot of other fighters. That I was a little bit more marketable, or to get me on their card, I'd always bring a good crowd and whatnot. So opportunities started to pop up and present themselves, and one thing led to another, and I think my fourth fight, I was fighting for a CFC world title at a sold out Horden Pavilion right here at home, and That was an amazing fight with Gustavo Falsaroli, who beat me up over 5 rounds. A fight that I thought I was never going to lose.
Was it the first round he had you in the arm?
Yeah. Almost broke my arm in the first round.
And you didn't tap out?
Yeah, I managed somehow to get out.
I still don't know how that arm bent. I was watching it the other day.
It doesn't bend like that anymore.
I bet you it doesn't.
But that was, again, something that was a very hard pill to swallow, but looking back, it was an amazing learning curve in my fighting career to realise that I can go 5 hard rounds with someone of Gustavo's level who's fought internationally. I served as motivation to train harder and include more things into my training and just develop as a mixed martial artist. So, it just kept continuing until initially the UFC didn't have my weight classes. I was sort of walking around like 67 kilos. I was fighting at 62 at bantamweight, but I was also fluctuating and like going up to featherweight to stay active because it was
you
quite
went
hard
on
to stay
that
active.
Contender series too, didn't you? Was it Contender Smashes or
it was a UFC house. So they called it the Tough House, and it was Australia versus the UK, and they dubbed it the Smashes.
And like again, we're talking that some people mightn't understand it, but just to appreciate what this lunatic has done with his life, the UFC was I suppose it was a ground where you could make the next step into the UFC level. So they put a group of fighters in a house.
Yeah, it's like a reality TV show. And it really catapulted
think
the
Big
UFC
Brother
sport.
with all these lunatics locked in a house and they fight each other every second day.
Yeah, and they brought it to Australia with the concept of putting Australia versus the UK. And there's a big series of tryouts you got to do for like all fighters around Australia applied. And I wasn't fighting at lightweight at the time. I was fighting at bantamweight and at times going up to featherweight to stay active. And I tried out as a lightweight. And I was lucky enough to get selected in the team. And there was also welterweights in this series as well. So guys that are fighting at 77 kilos, and Rod Whittaker and Manny Rodriguez were part of the welterweights. And we had a great time in the house against the UK guys, And inside the octagon, I did get the results I was hoping, but again, it was a great experience. And I got my foot in the door with the UFC at least, and that eventually led to me getting signed as a flyweight. So I ended up fighting down at 57 kilos.
How'd you find that making weight? Was that?
Looking back, horrible. I've experienced it fighting, from 71 kilos to 66 to 62 and to 57. And 57 was just too much of a cut. And I can say, at the time, I was saying, no, it's the right place for me. I've just got to tinker with my weight cut and tinker with my diet. I just perfected. And but looking back, it was just it was too much. My whole fight camp was focused on making that weight and every day waking up and the number on the scales. And I was flat. I was lethargic. I didn't enjoy training. And I've since learnt, speaking of doctors, your hormones get knocked out of whack when you're dieting. So it's effectively like an extreme version of yo-yo dieting.
I've worked the corner for Dave Letizia, a professional fighter over in WA, and he said, "Well, you're in my corner, so you can share the pain."
Yeah,
and he had to strip weight in the. It was a steam room every 20 minutes with a doctor monitoring the weight and all that. I think I lost in 2 hours or 3 hours because I'd go in with him. I wasn't allowed to drink something like 5 kilos. It was ridiculous. Every time I went in and I saw Dave, and he just got to the point we could go back in there for 20 minutes and he wouldn't lose nothing. And it was just dehydrated. Then he had to go to the weigh-in and the media stuff, or the weigh-in before he could drink, and then when he got put on the drip. But it stuffs you up.
It's crazy. It's so backwards to think that 24 hours before you're supposed to perform at your physical peak, you're a prune on these scales. You couldn't hurt a fly.
It's not healthy.
And not everyone does that. You do choose. I got asked to fight at flyweight by the UFC, and I knew I could make that because I was making bantamweight relatively easy. And I was walking around sort of 68 kilos, get down to 62 pretty easy. I thought if I be a bit stricter with my diet and I hired a nutritionist, it was actually the UK nutritionist who was in the house, Dean Ambersinger, to help me get down there because he also planted the seed saying, mate, I think you can make flyweight. So when I got asked, I thought, with Dean's help, I'll get there. Yeah. But it was just too much. And like the hormones, I just didn't want to be there. I didn't enjoy training. There was none of that bloodthirst. It was always there. And every other fight prep when I was fighting other weight class, I was full of beans. I loved training. I always had energy, and I couldn't wait to lock horns with my opponent. You know what I mean? And just challenge myself and feel their blows and and just feel their strength.
When you'd strip down that much, I
just couldn't wait for this thing to be over and go get a feed. Basically, and. It's
brutal.
It is brutal. It's brutal. So in hindsight, and there's no excuses for my performance at flyweight. I had some wins and had some losses, but looking back, it wasn't the best weight for me. And people get blown away when they hear the process of cutting weight for fighting, and especially mixed martial arts because there's so much wrestling involved. And I think wrestlers, like Olympic wrestlers, they have influenced the sport a lot in how they cut weight, because they all cut a lot of weight. Whereas boxers and kickboxers, not so much as extreme as they do in the wrestling culture. And everyone wants to be the bigger, stronger guy when they step in the cage, so they're willing to cut a little bit.
But it's brutal, and I think that shows the mental strength you've got to even commit to it, because it breaks a.
They are the toughest times, like you said. Sitting in a bath, because I was to get down to 57. I would I was walking around with 68 with not a lot of fat on me. I'd diet and get down to about 62 just through dieting and obviously training hard. And then from 62, I'll do this like water loading technique where you drink like 8 litres of water a day, and then you eventually sit in a hot bath as hot as you can handle and just sweat it out that way. And I would lose 6 kilos in about 8 hours, off a body that was like pretty much skin and bone.
I know. That's what I said when I said I lost 5 kilos. People are going bullshit. I'm going, no, they were measuring.
It's not realistic weight
20
loss.
20 minutes, I'd lose a kilo, and you just come out drained. And the last thing you felt like doing with anything physical, let alone fighting.
Exactly.
But you also, with your UFC, you fought, was it UFC 194 with Holly Holmes and
Ronda Rousey? Yeah,
that was down in Melbourne in the was it
Emirates,
stadium?
Emirates Stadium?
And it was the biggest crowd for a martial arts fight in the world at the time.
That was
how many? It was 50, 60,000 people.
Yeah, 60,000 people in the stadium, and huge names on the card like Ronda Rousey and Mark Hunt and Rob Whittaker, and amazing event to be a part of.
How did that feel, walking out in front of a crowd like that? Because I remember the atmosphere. I was watching it.
Yeah, it was odd. It was coming from fighting at RSLs, on the local scene, and everyone's so in your face, like you're walking through the crowd, you're bumping shoulders with the punters in the crowd, and people are slapping you and, like high-fiving you as you go, to walking out to a stadium where everyone's so far away, and the walk is 10 times longer than you've ever walked to a cage before in your life, So, you sort of you're kind of cold by the time you get to the cage, and you're sort of like walking around going, there's so much space in this, there's so many people, but they just
start daydreaming.
Even like, fighting at Luna Park and stuff, it was a awesome environment and atmosphere to fight in because of that proximity, and you could hear people yell at you, and you could feel their breath on you almost. And to walk out there, you could still feel the amount of people, but it was such a large venue, and it was a wild experience, Got in there, and like I said, I just wasn't in the right frame of mind to get the job done, and I feel a fight. All credit to my opponent, Danny. But a fight that I think I should have won, but just wasn't in the frame of mind to really go out there and
it's a fine line, isn't it? To that in the right frame of mind.
Yeah, like I said, I just didn't have that kill or be killed attitude, and I gave away a few takedowns that allowed him to win on points, and it's a loss that still stings. There's some losses that I lost, and I'm okay with, like the Gustavo one. But some that still are.
Could have done. You think you could have done better.
Yeah, just because you feel like you beat yourself. You had it there, and it was your choice or your frame of mind that you walked into that octagon that day that beat you.
Well, it's interesting to get your insight, because what you've achieved in different fields. You've got to have that drive. So what drives you? And for someone's life where you grew up on the beach, do you ever think what my life would be like if I didn't grow up in Maroubra?
I do, mate. I do. Like, look, I work out in western suburbs and all over the place, and I wonder what would have happened if I grew up at Pennant Hills or
where
Cherry
would have
Brook.
you channel the energy?
I've always been a sporty kid. Love sport, love footy, love cross country when I was a kid, and so I think I would have found myself in some regard sporting, whether it be motocross maybe or bike riding or skating. I'm not sure, but I do think the potential for me to get in trouble out there would have been greater had I not found a passion like the ocean and surfing. I would mixed martial arts, but that came into my life a little bit later, when I was in my teens. So I don't know. I like to think that it would have turned out okay, but because the ocean is such a huge part of my life now, and everything that it offers in terms of like recreation, therapy,
it can take
lifestyle.
Everything you throw at it too.
Exactly. And it's a constant teacher. Every time you sort of think you're a bit big for your boots, it pulls you back on the line, and I think I'm very lucky to have grown up down there. But who knows what I would have done if growing out west or in an environment without that. I'm sure I would have found something, but I'm sure it would have been I don't know what could have replaced that, to be honest.
Another interesting aspect of your life, and again, life experiences. But I think it said a lot, that film Fighting Fear. Like, you must have been proud of that, and you actually, not many people can say they've toured the world promoting a film about themselves. Oh, you and your best mate makes it even better.
And look, with Macca mate, and Mick Lawrence and Nick Cook, everyone that was involved were just such great mates. You know? Me, Macca and Mark have been thick as thieves since we were kids, and the guys who produce it, Mick and Nick, just been around touring with them and just been going through the whole process of putting it together. Was just so much fun, and to see it be received really well. It was really rewarding as well, and just to add little things like, the night surfing at the end of that came off the back of the Fighting Fear film, and at that wave that we know at ours or Cape Fear that we started surfing all those years ago, to see it, eventually play a role in things like that, and then the Cape Fear event, the Red Bull Cape Fear again as well. Just the way things, how they lead and how
And were you proud of the message that film put out there too? Because I think a lot of people, because you manage through a variety of things to have everyone's attention. And look, you're saying I was being a dickhead and now I've got to straighten out, blah, blah, blah. You and Mark, because Mark went down the path too.
Exactly.
Where he got glassed and
I think, like we mentioned earlier too, like maybe the messages were misconstrued coming out of the Bra Boys. That was all about mateship too and family. And there was a lot of messages that got lost and got replaced by like violence and big noting and trying to build a reputation for yourself, which like I said, didn't favour a lot of the younger generation. So this, I know with Mick, he often mentioned that he wanted to try and put something there with focusing more on those positive messages, and also like he always mentioned like a little bit of a Gallipoli kind of message, like what. One good mate can change a life kind of thing, and mateship and camaraderie and making mistakes but being there for each other to sort of help through those adversities. And so for those to be recognised, and then the film can be shown in school as part of the curriculum in high schools. So we've been to schools and they've seen the film, then me and Mark and Macca have been there and spoke about it and done Q&As.
How cool's that?
So that's awesome. That kind
awesome.
Of stuff to actually see on a actual practical sort of grassroots level, the implications of the film and the positive sort of impact has happened. It was awesome. Well,
the way the messaging was done was powerful, because it's not you standing there lecturing, going, don't do this or this will happen, that, because we all switch off. But it was just, you took everyone on the journey, you and Mark. And really. So, but that's good. It's getting out to schools. I didn't. So it's been, like
I said, it's something. Growing up, I never thought I'd be standing in front of a bunch of high schoolers, sort of talking about, riding a mechanical bull nude or getting into the octagon fighting.
So you always bring it back to nudity, don't you?
Sorry. I'll get my head out the gutter.
You got your pants on. But that type of thing, like I could just imagine high school kids sitting there going, wow. How cool's this? And the message, and I hadn't made the connection, but the Bra Boys could have been misconstrued, the movie, because people might take the wrong message out. I think if you look at it deep, you see a strong message come out. But then, Fighting Fear really sort of put it in perspective.
That was a little sort of a motivating factor in the whole idea behind Fighting Fear, so it was like I said, a lot of fun, and then to take it around, Europe and the country showing it, and something I look back on now, go, wow, that was a very special time. They're so lucky and grateful to have had those experiences. Have
those experiences, and that's all come from you throwing yourself in at life and getting your scars, getting your knocks, bouncing back and working out. You also did a show, The Crew.
Yes,
I watched that. They took it off. It's a disappointment. Whoever took it off, could you put it back on? Because you were just the first. The premise of the show was you and your two mates, Macca and Mark Matthews, and both or the three of you trying to achieve things and heading in different directions. That's giving a sort of brief summary of it. But I think the next season or the season after, you were actually bringing in some young blokes and trying to mentor them and that type of thing. I thought it would have been a good way to.
We loved it, and we were really we're just so fortunate. Mac is that creative genius. Mark's again a real creative. We got Mick and Nick behind the scenes doing things, and I just feel like I'm just the punt drunk carpet layer, who's just fortunate enough to be surrounded by good mates who gets dragged on all these awesome projects and ideas. But it was received really well, and we did 3 seasons with Fuel TV, and the guys at Fox Sports were right behind it. It was just a matter of funding and budgeting and time, as well, to continue it going, which it was a constant struggle to sort of get the ball over the line in that regard. But our last season, we called it the Crew Generation 2, where I brought on 3 young fighters, Macca brought on 3 young musicians, and Mark brought on 3 young surfers. Was probably my favourite season by far. And in saying that, seeing those young people that we brought on all those years ago doing so well, not that we played only a tiny role, but it's just awesome to just see that they're doing really well. Like for myself, I've got Jamie Malarkey, who's now fighting the UFC. Got Isaac Hardman, who's one of Australia's top boxers at welterweight or super welterweight, 72 kilos it is, on fire. And Chris Casaselli, who's teaching in jiu-jitsu gyms now and just starting his mixed martial art career. Yeah, it's great to have such a good connection with those kids and have them being part of something special too. Where we travel, we went to Thailand and trained over there with them, and it was received really well. It was awesome. Like I said, I wish I could say I had a bigger part in coming up with that idea, but that's just all Mark, Mick, and Macca's kind of brainstorm.
It's your podcast. You say whatever you want. Don't worry about them. This is your version of events. Whatever. But it must feel good putting stuff back, giving stuff back.
It does, and like working with the kids at Lewis's gym and the PCYC.
And who would have thought you'd be probably bumping in the cops there?
And having a relationship. Cops, we were saying g'day now,
you
on the
say
street,
hello to
not getting chased down the street or throwing eggs at each other, at the cars. But that was just the environment that I met when I was 10 years old, walking into the surf shop at Maroubra Beach, at Maroubra Underground. It was just, you need a wetsuit, here you go. You want a board, here you go. Do you want to lift home? Jump in the car. The waves got big. We're going to go surf these waves that kind of like with voodoo. Let's go. Always people helping out. The older guys always just, what, you don't have money for lunch? Here, mate. There was nothing that you went without, And so you're growing up surrounded by that constantly. When the opportunity comes to like, hey, can you help out with this little program we got going for these kids? He's like, of course I can. And or if it becomes part of your nature, and then you're surrounded by it. You just take it on, and it's just you don't think twice about wanting to give back. And when opportunities pop up, it's really rewarding. And then you start to understand how rewarding, fulfilling that is. You start to almost feel selfish that you want to do that kind of stuff because of what you're getting out of it.
It's amazing if you give back the rewards that flow from your own self.
Exactly.
You just feel like you're contributing. But look, I think it's time we wrap up. I could talk all day, but I still want you to tell me more about the waves and your fighting career and all that. But I just think it's amazing what you've done, Richie, and I think people really, if they sit down and listen, because this is something that we want to get across in what we're doing with the podcast, let people tell their stories, let them be raw, let them be honest, and then people can work it out for themselves. But I think if people listen to your story, I understand where you come from, and I understand what you're doing now, and it's been quite amazing. So,
well, I really appreciate you having me on, and it's been I had a great time having a chat, and I hope people enjoy what I put out there in the past. And like I said, I'm not here to please everyone, but we live and we learn, and I like to think that the mistakes I've made, that I've grown and enough now to take some ownership and show regret and trying to flip them into positives and move on and just enjoy life. It's this bottom line is just get out there and enjoy life.
Richie, whenever the day comes when you say goodbye to this world, no one's going to say he hasn't lived life. So you've lived it large, you've lived it full. So good on you, mate. And I find what you've achieved in life inspirational. So all the best, and
appreciate it, Gary. Thanks, Aaron.
Catch you later.